The story begins in Virginia in 1864 during the third year of the American Civil War. A young girl named Amy is seen walking through the woods, picking mushrooms. While gathering her finds, she comes across a Union soldier named John McBurney, badly wounded with a bleeding leg. He asks her where she's from, and she tells him she lives at a nearby boarding school with just a few others, including a teacher and the school's owner, Miss Martha. Despite being from the opposing side, John asks to be taken there, and Amy, with a compassionate heart, agrees to help him. They reach the school, and John collapses at the doorstep. The girls, intrigued by the handsome soldier, carry him inside and place him in the music room. Miss Martha quickly orders Amy to signal the patrol by tying a blue cloth to the fence, a marker for the enemy. However, after seeing how serious John's condition is, she decides to wait until he recovers before making any decisions. Martha and the school teacher, Edua, tend to his wound, removing shrapnel and stitching it up. Once they leave the room, Amy tells the group his name, but Martha dismisses it, stating that they need not know him, as he won't stay for long. Later, while Martha is washing her face, a loud bell rings, signaling the arrival of a patrol. Martha hurries to the gate and meets the captain, who warns her that enemy soldiers are near and advises caution. She requests bullets for her father's gun, explaining the nearby fighting and her need for self-defense. Without hesitation, the captain provides the bullets, and the patrol leaves. Meanwhile, the girls, watching from the window, feel relieved that Martha hasn't turned John over yet. They barely had time to even consider anything more. The next morning, Amy checks on John and sees that he's much better. She heads to the kitchen where everyone is working together to prepare food and notices that the girls have dressed up, possibly to impress the injured soldier. Later, Martha goes to the music room to check on John, who is now awake. He thanks her for her kindness in taking him in when he needed help. However, Martha coldly reminds him that he is not welcome there and is not a guest. Shortly after, a teenage girl named Alicia enters and offers to assist, but Martha sharply tells her to leave, stating that students are not allowed in the afternoon. Soon after, Edu approaches John with soap so he can clean himself. As they chat, John admits he fled the battlefield to avoid death. He then inquires about Edua's life, and she shares that she's from Richmond and has traveled frequently due to her father's business. As their conversation continues, John flirtatiously tells Edua that he's never seen anyone as beautiful as her. When he asks about her biggest wish, Edua replies that she simply wants to leave the boarding school. Later that night, during the evening prayer, Alicia asks to use the bathroom. However, instead of going there, she sneaks into John's room and kisses him passionately. John is shocked by the sudden kiss, but Alicia says nothing and calmly returns to the prayer gathering. The next day during dinner, Martha suggests that the girls should pray with John that evening. Everyone agrees and they head to his room. Before they pray, they decide to play some music, but a sudden knock on the door startles the group. Martha tells the girls to stay inside while she checks who's at the door. When she returns, she reveals it was just two soldiers to whom she offered food. This prompts another discussion about whether they should hand John over or let him stay until he's fully recovered. After a vote, everyone agrees that John should stay, and Martha reluctantly accepts the decision. Later that evening, after the soldiers leave, Martha invites John to share some brandy. He agrees, and they sit by the fireplace drinking and talking. It's clear that Martha's tough exterior is beginning to soften toward John, who is charming and manipulative. He praises her strength and how caring she is toward the girls. John then asks if she had anyone in her life before the war, and Martha, with a sad look, answers yes. Over the following days, John's health steadily improves, and with the help of a cane, he begins walking. He notices that the garden has been neglected, so he starts working on the rose bushes, pulling weeds and pruning the trees. During a break, Amy brings him some water and they talk. John calls her his best friend, claiming she's the one who saved him. Amy is thrilled by this and rushes inside to tell the others. However, she's soon stopped by a jealous Alicia, who asks if Amy has been gossiping about the other girls with John. Meanwhile, John continues his work in the garden and notices Edua watching him from a window. Martha then approaches him and thanks him for his hard work. She notices his leg and says that he should be able to leave by the end of the week. John, worried, suggests that they could use a gardener to help with the work that's still left. He tries to convince Martha that he's afraid of returning to battle, but it seems she's already made up her mind. Soon the news spreads to the other girls, who are upset by the thought of John leaving. They convince Martha to invite him for dinner since he usually eats alone in his room. Afterward, Edua visits John and expresses that she doesn't want him to leave. John admits that he doesn't want to leave either and confesses his feelings for her. Edua is skeptical, but John insists that he's liked her since their first meeting, though he was too scared to admit it. He tells her he's tired of the war and asks her to run away with him and get married. Upon hearing John's proposal, Edua is moved, and they share a passionate kiss. However, they quickly pull away when the other girls arrive, inviting John to join them for dinner. That evening, the girls all dress in their finest clothes in hopes of impressing him. Martha, noticing Edua's bare shoulder, criticizes her outfit and asks her to cover up. John, sensing the tension, changes the subject and praises the delicious apple pie. By apple pie, he actually means Edua's exposed shoulder, which draws attention. Alicia proudly claims credit for making it, making Edua feel jealous. Edua, in turn, asserts that the recipe was hers, and Amy chimes in that she picked the apples herself. John whispers to Edua that she looks stunning and asks if he can visit her later. He then raises a toast to Martha, calling her the bravest woman he's ever met. After dinner, everyone returns to their rooms. John and Martha stand near his door, close enough that a kiss almost seems imminent. However, the noise from the girls upstairs interrupts them. Later that night, Edua waits for John in her room. He doesn't come. She hears sounds coming from a nearby room and opens the door to find Alicia and John in the middle of an intimate encounter. Heartbroken, Edua runs away, but John chases after her to explain. She refuses to listen and pushes him away, causing him to fall down the stairs, re-injuring his already wounded leg. Martha and the other girls rush to investigate the commotion, finding John unconscious at the bottom of the stairs with his leg broken. Alicia fabricates a story, claiming that John was attacking her when Edua barged in. To Edua's shock, everyone believes Alicia's version of events and helps carry John to his room. Martha examines his leg and determines that the only way to prevent further infection is to amputate it, as there's no doctor available. She asks Edua to fetch a saw and an anatomy book, which Edua tearfully does. The next morning, the girls hold a small ceremony to bury John's severed leg. Meanwhile, John wakes up horrified to discover his leg is gone. He screams in panic, and Martha and Edua rush in to calm him. They explain that they had to amputate it to save his life, but John accuses them of mutilating him in retaliation for not being with them. He calls them vengeful and uses abusive language. Terrified, Martha locks him in the room, but he continues to scream, sending the whole house into fear. Hours later, when John finally calms down, Alicia visits him to apologize. It becomes clear that they've been having an affair, and she tries to reassure him, telling him that he will heal soon. However, John aggressively grabs her hair, demanding that she steal the room keys from Martha. Alicia hesitates, worried about the consequences, but eventually agrees when John continues to force her. In the afternoon, everyone gathers in the dining room to discuss what to do about John. The girls are terrified of him and want him gone, with even Alicia no longer wanting him around. However, Edua continues to defend him. Just then, John appears downstairs with crutches and reveals that he has obtained Martha's revolver. He accuses Martha and Edua of mutilating him simply because he didn't sleep with them, further terrifying the girls. Amy, frightened by his outbursts, claims that his yelling is scaring her pet tortoise. John, in a fit of rage, grabs the tortoise and stomps on it, killing it, which deeply upsets Amy. This act seems to finally calm John down, but the situation is far from resolved. Martha, in a panic, gives Amy a blue rag and asks her to tie it to the front door as a signal to passing Confederate troops that a Union soldier is nearby. Amy does so, but John follows her and removes the rag, causing Amy to run away in fear. John chases after her, and Martha hears her scream, rushing outside to see what's happening. Martha quickly arrives at the barn, where she finds John holding Amy at gunpoint, threatening to harm her. She steps in to de-escalate the situation and invites him back to the house for a calm discussion. Upon returning, John reassures the girls that he never meant to harm them. He explains that his despair over his disability has pushed him to the point of feeling that death would be a better option than living like this. He then threatens that if anyone tries to harm him again, he will shoot them all at once, even demonstrating his resolve by shooting a chandelier. Afterward, he heads upstairs, with Edua following him immediately. Edua approaches John and attempts to seduce him. Though hesitant at first, John eventually gives in, and they have a passionate encounter on the floor. Meanwhile, downstairs, the other girls brainstorm solutions for dealing with John, who has become increasingly dangerous. One suggests hanging or burning him, but Martha refuses to resort to such brutality. Another girl remembers that John loves mushrooms and suggests that Amy find poisonous ones to feed him. Martha agrees, and the girls make plans to follow through, keeping Edua in the dark. Later that evening, everyone dresses for a fancy dinner, and John joins them, still in a mood after his encounter with Edua. He apologizes for his earlier outburst, but accepts the mushrooms offered to him by Amy without question. He graciously passes some to Edua as well, though she is reminded that she dislikes mushrooms. Edua hesitates but agrees to not eat them. John, on the other hand, devours the mushrooms and praises them as the best meal he's ever had. However, soon after, he begins gasping and struggles to breathe. Edua grows concerned, but the others remain unfazed, chatting amongst themselves. John collapses, dead from poisoning. Edua is devastated as she realizes what has happened. The next morning, the girls are seen sewing John's body into a burlap sack. They place him outside the gate and hang a blue cloth, signaling to the soldiers who will find him. The movie ends with everyone going back to their usual routines as if nothing had transpired except for Edua, who is clearly distraught over the events.